Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacqueline. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacqueline at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hi, red.olaughlin here on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Thank you again, Dr. Jacqueline, for allowing me this opportunity. Today, let's get my slides up here real quickly. Number one, what happened to number one? Let's go back. Number one, I'm talking about fat management. This is session number 6 out of 6. And we've talked about what is fat, what causes fat to go into a fat cell, what causes fat to come out of a fat cell, what causes fat to burn, what stops fat from burning. We're going to talk about a little bit of a summary very quickly, and then we're going to go into some of those things. What can I do to lose weight, lose inches that work? And we're going to go into a little bit of detail. I am not a physician, never have been, never been associated with any pharmaceutical company. My love of my life, long before I met my wife of 54 years, was chemistry. I use it literally daily for researching the human body at the cellular level. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, you fix a problem. Treat a symptom, you'll always be treating symptoms. So when I'm looking at fat management and I want to know what causes fat to burn, well, I also want to know what stops fat burning, because if I'm doing those things that can cause it to burn, but I'm doing one thing that stops it from burning, it may be enough that it stops everything. But if I know what stops fat from burning, I ought to be able to do those things or not do those things accordingly, and then take advantage of that. So that's what this program is about, is awareness first, increasing education in various areas, and allowing you the option of figuring out what action you want to take. And before you take any action at all, particularly with your health, if you're on any prescription meds, if you're in any kind of compromised situation, please contact your doctor or contact your pharmacist if you're on a particular medicine, because they're the ones that have the real expertise on how something like changing over from this to this might affect your overall health. And that's super important to me. So fat management, I mean, it's our body's ability to store and manage fat. Okay. What causes fat to burn? Did I not put a summary on that one? Just let me double check here. I was making slides. Okay, I must not have just put a slide on that one. We burn fat all the time. We lose inches all the time. We also gain it right back. Fat is continually in motion. It goes in and out of a fat cell. It's part of what we do just every day for living. The energy that we derive is from our muscles. The fat is in there, provides the energy source. We use glucose. We use a lot of things in there. But fat in and of itself, it comes from either a fat that we eat, so you have a pork chop, or you have a steak, or you have something that has fat in it, fat, beef, pork, chicken, it doesn't matter where the fat comes from, or any kind of carbohydrate, rice, potatoes, your favorite Coca-Cola. It doesn't matter. If it has a carbohydrate in it, the body's going to convert that and make it into eventually a fat. It's going to have a temporary holding place as glucose, blood sugar. That's where we get our energy. But if we're not using it all up, then all of a sudden, what do we do with all the extra blood sugar I have? Well, the body's answers, we store it away for fat, because you never know when you're going to use it. And if you start starving enough, not eating, the body's going to say, well, I got to hold on to what I have. So it's very insidious, because you think that I just cut back a little bit on food, I pick up a little bit more in exercise. And if it's incremental, it'll probably work. If it's a lot, it probably won't. But dietary fat is literally looking at 3 fatty acids and a glycerol molecule. It's called a triglyceride. It's stored as triglycerides in a fat cell, but a triglyceride can't physically get into a fat cell or physically get out of a fat cell. And that's part of the problem, is that when it's stored there, it's stored. They're trapped. They can't get out. You have to have something to help get that out of there. So when we're looking at the fatty acids, that's the actual part that we use for fuel. But you have to grab those fatty acids, combine them with the glycerol, which comes from the carbohydrate, and then I can store it as fat. And then when I want to burn it, I got to separate that glycerol molecule from the fatty acids. They can flow out of the fat cell pretty easily and then be used for fuel. And we have what we call our basal metabolic rate, our metabolism, and that's what determines how fast we burn fuel. Now, as we get older, we're less efficient. If we have a nutrient imbalance, we're deficient in B12 and zinc and iron and a half a dozen other things. It's going to influence how fast or how slow we burn fat. Now, the glucose, when it's in our blood, it's going to cause insulin to be created from our pancreas. And insulin is the one that drives that blood glucose into our muscles as glycogen. And it's also a molecule, it's a hormone that causes fat to stay in a fat cell. So if you have glucose or insulin, and in reality also cortisol, but I'll cover that later. But if glucose or insulin are active in your bloodstream, you're not going to lose any weight. Simple as that. So if you're eating 3 times a day and part of your eating is carbohydrates, unless it's just a really small amount of carbohydrates, you're probably not going to lose much, because so long as glucose or insulin is in the bloodstream, fat is not going to come out of a fat cell. You're not going to get access to removing it and burning it. However, if you can zero out the glucose, and that's just a matter of not eating carbohydrates, then all of a sudden you now have an option. You can start burning the glucose that's already stored as fat and start watching incrementally those inches melt off. But it's not as easy as we say it is, because there's just a lot of things that affect each one of us. If you have a little bit of a hormone imbalance here, a little bit of a vitamin deficiency over here, a little bit of overstressed over here, a little bit of couch potato on this side, all these things add up, and they're not a common thread that you can say, well, just do a little bit more of this, a little bit less. It doesn't work that way. And so each person has to really fine tune their own individual body to find out what works. And what worked at 40 doesn't work at 60 and will not work at 80. And so you just have to really and truly be cognizant. So as we look at the insulin actually is more than just the carbs. It controls the fats. It provides the protein. It does a lot of things beyond that. So we really need the insulin. So as the insulin pushes our fuel or energy into our cells for storage or into our fat for storage, it's doing its job. It loves to store fat. If it does nothing else, it's going to store fat. But it has a couple helpers along the way. One of those helpers is an enzyme called LPL. Another one's HSL. LPL is lipoprotein lipase, and that one is sitting literally on the outside part of a fat molecule. And as the fatty acids go rolling by in the bloodstream, it reaches out and it grabs them and pulls them in and shoves them into the fat cell. And as the glycerol molecules are going by inside the fat cell, the 3 fatty acids combine with the glycerol, and you have a triglyceride. And that triglyceride is trapped in there. Now, sometimes the triglycerides are on the outside, and as it goes by, the LPL will reach out there and want to start stripping off the fatty acids. And so you have an active participant out there looking for fatty acids, trying to keep them in the fat cell. Well, inside the fat cell, you have this other one, HSL. It's a hormone-sensitive lipase. And when you don't have insulin or glucose floating around in the bloodstream, LPL kind of goes dormant because it doesn't have a job to do. HSL now separates the glycerol molecule from the triglyceride, and the fatty acids can now leave and enter into the bloodstream. And now when you have a demand because your body is exercising or just sleeping or whatever, now you're burning that fat as such. And that's very, very important. My slide down. So LPL, as I said earlier, sits on the outside, shows them in, HSL on the inside. Well, when you're stressed, your body makes adrenaline and makes cortisol. Well, cortisol is very similar in regard to insulin, in the fact that it loves to create extra insulin on the body. So we know that insulin is going to store fat. You have cortisol there, it's going to create more insulin. We're going to store more fat. So we end up with a situation that you have a double whammy that you're storing fat and it blocks fat from leaving because that's just the way those chemicals work. So whatever we can do to reduce cortisol, which is stress management, then we're reducing that level of cortisol. Then as we burn up our existing storage in our muscles of glycogen, which is our energy source for fuel, then we can actually start getting into burning fat. But then we have another little bugaboo that kind of raises its head. It's called insulin sensitivity. Insulin can be very, very sensitive. You use just a little bit, it goes in the muscle, but things cause it sometimes to not be so cooperative. And as such, it takes a little bit more insulin to push the same amount of blood glucose into a cell as glycogen. And insulin sensitivity can be exacerbated. It can, there's just a lot of things there that create problems. We can tell we have a problem with insulin sensitivity because our mental, physical fatigue, poor memory, moodiness on occasion. But if we take certain things like chromium, vitamin K2 particularly, what they call PMS, polymethoxylated flavones, ALA, alpha lipoic acid, magnesium, curcumin. Now, if you're taking curcumin, which is turmeric, it's an Indian spice, you really need to take it with piperine, a black pepper extract. Otherwise, you're only getting about 2 or 3 or 4%. If you take it with the piperine, you're getting about a 2,000% increase in the bioavailability of curcumin into the body. And it's probably one of the most potent antioxidants available. There's a couple in there that I think are a little bit better, but it's a very, very good one. But there's a lot of things in there that can improve your insulin sensitivity. Insulin resistance that I mentioned, if you're overdoing on alcohol, smoking, if you're obese, you got more than just a few extra pounds, high level of inflammation, excess cortisol, as I mentioned, adrenaline also. If you're looking at your hormones, excess or low levels of testosterone, low levels of estrogen, high levels of high fructose corn syrup. You find that mostly in a lot of packaged foods and drinks and everything. Toxins, if you're not sleeping well. A lot of things exacerbate the situation with insulin resistance. And it's very difficult to overcome those because if you continue those, they're going to dominate and you're not going to be able to overcome. If you can zero out your glucose, now all of a sudden you can burn up all the glucose that's in the cells, and the body has to make a decision. In order to supply energy to do what we need to do, it's going to stop using the glucose as glycogen and shift over into actually burning fat. And so you zero out that glucose by eliminating carbohydrates, minimizing the frequency of your meals. Dr. Jacqueline talks periodically about intermittent fast. You're only eating, maybe once every 24 hours, twice every 24 hours, but it's the amount of time in between eating. So if you only eat, say, for 6 hours a day and 18 hours a day you're not eating, that's what they call an intermittent fast. That allows the body to do a lot of things that it wouldn't normally have time to do because it's constantly doing something. So when you see this, well, you really need to have 5 or 6 or 7 small meals a day. Just stay away from that as far as you can, because you're adding carbohydrates, you're constantly keeping your blood sugar high, you're increasing your risk of diabetes. It's just so many things wrong with a lot of small meals a day. A small meal is not bad, 1 or 2 of them, but you don't need a half a dozen. But once you start shifting from being in a zero carb environment and starting to burn fat, now you're actually having a chance to burn some of those inches off your belly, your buttocks, your legs, wherever you happen to have that extra fat. I carry a lot of mine around my neck. That's the first place where I lose weight. I want to lose it around my waist. That's not the way the body thinks. It's going to lose it in its own time. So if you're thinking, okay, I'm going to drop 3 inches off my waist, and then you all of a sudden you notice that, other things, you can't plan on where you're going to lose the fat. That's just not the way it works. But we start shifting into a ketosis basis, ketones, to burning fat. So now we're actually really burning fat rather than glucose. And this ketosis, for some people, it can literally happen overnight. You give up carbohydrates and you're burning fat. I've mentioned more than a couple times in my shows over time that I was on Atkins for a number of years. Atkins, and I was on literally less than 10 grams a day forever. And I found it probably one of the most delightful diets ever. I lost 40 pounds instantly overnight. I would say overnight. In 4 months, I think I lost 46 pounds. I lost 7, 8 inches along my waist. Everything happened in a very short period of time. But some people, because they're deficient in this, they have a hormone imbalance, they have a number of other issues. Ketosis doesn't start on a clock. It starts when your body adjusts to everything that's there. So for some people, ketosis, you're burning fat, actually can start within 24 hours, within a day or two. But sometimes it takes more than it may take a week. It may take even longer than that. It may even take longer than a couple of weeks. So if you're starting something and you get it in your mind, well, okay, fine, I'm going to lose this, and it doesn't happen, all of a sudden we go back to our comfort zone. Well, it's just not working for me. And you go back to your comfort zone, you eat what you want and whatever. So it's a combination of things. You start with the food because 85% of your weight gain is going to be food related, not exercise related. And as I talk about exercise at the very end today, exercise really only accounts for 10, maybe 15% of any real weight loss or inch loss regarding fat. But if we can control our basal metabolic rate, what regulates our actual fat burning, then we have chance. And the basal metabolic rate is affected by many, many things. Hormone imbalances, we're talking about insulin, we're talking about ghrelin, leptin, thyroid, big one, thyroid for that, cortisol, estrogen, testosterone, and many, many more. There's just almost too many to list. Calcium, zinc, magnesium, omega-3s, your basic vitamins A, B, C, D, E. If your inflammation levels are in high enough, then oxidative stress is starting to occur. We have issues there with inflammation causing our basal metabolic rate to slow down. So how do we actually do it? Well, the things that keep you healthy are generally going to keep you thinner. Nutritional balance. If you have nutrients out of balance, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, enzymes, let's get everything in balance. You have over 30 nutrients the body needs every day, and most of us are not getting it. Stress management, your cortisol, your adrenaline. Toxin removal, being able to read labels properly so you know what's in the foods that you're getting, and more. The quality of our sleep, moderate our alcohol, give up smoking, and just a lot of things there. But all of these things, when we do them right, we actually start addressing the causes. We stop addressing, what's storing fat. We're actually opening up fat so it can be burned. So we want to minimize the carbs, eliminate them if possible. In this process, we want to reduce calories because calories is really the big bugaboo that we're there. But okay, fine, I take a week and I cut a lot of calories out, but I don't see any results because you're not in ketosis and you're not really burning it. We need to increase our activity. Using a salad plate rather than a regular plate, choosing more healthy fats. I use a lot of coconut oil for almost everything I do. It's a very, very healthy. It's a medium chain triglyceride. It's a saturated fat, but it's a plant saturated fat. And it's really and truly one of the most healthy things you can do. I also recommend the Walls Protocol. Dr. Terry Walls is an internist. She wrote a book called The Walls Protocol. She had late in life came down with MS. It kept getting worse and worse. She ended up in a wheelchair for years. She studied autoimmune diseases. She wrote a book, The Walls Protocol. And basically, one of the protocols is balanced nutrition, over 30 nutrients a day. And she gives a easy way to get that in her protocol. There's some other parts to it with exercise and stress management and toxin removal, the 4 protocols on her thing. If you listen to me talk about my wife's chemotherapy and I put her on Walls and how in literally in 48 hours it eliminated fatigue from months of chemo and didn't even allow fatigue to start with weeks of radiation. It's amazing diet. No carbohydrates other than what you'd find in spinach and other kinds of green leafy vegetables and colored fruits and vegetables. But it increases the antioxidant levels in the body. You're reducing your inflammation. It reduces insulin resistance. And in our fat cells, we have another hormone that's created. It's called leptin. Typically, ghrelin's going to say, hey, I got an empty stomach. send me some food. Your body communicates with it. Boom, it comes down. You eat. Now all of a sudden you're getting into there, and you're starting to fill up the fat cells a little bit. And the leptin's going to say, "Hey, stop! I got plenty." And in reality, if everything works fine, you're fine. But just as you can get insulin resistance, you can get leptin resistance, and that leptin resistance can create a problem because now you don't stop eating. Hydration. If you are absolutely dehydrated, it's going to just absolutely shut down your fat burning. Your body's going to take care of itself first, and you need to get hydration. There are a number of different kinds of meds, antipsychotics, antidepressants, heart meds, that all impact our ability to burn fat. They affect our basal metabolic rate. If you don't do anything else 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 times a day, manage stress. Just go to Dr. Google, Dr. YouTube, lots of stress management programs there. High fructose corn syrup, just eliminate it completely from your diet. It's not healthy for your brain. It's not healthy for your liver. It's just not healthy in so many different ways. Okay, let's talk about some individual things that can probably help people. African mango, it inhibits adipogenesis. That is just a big fancy word for fat storage. So if we want to create something that's going to store fat, well, if we can inhibit that mechanism, well, the African mango does it. And it also reduces leptin resistance. Beta glucans, typically found in mushrooms and some other places, it increases our level. Hey, if we have that, I'm full. I don't really need to eat anymore. And it also slows down the time that food's in our gastrointestinal tract so that we can extract more nutrients out, and it makes us feel full. Bitter orange, another one. It increases our BMR, basal metabolic rate. And lipolysis, that is where we actually take and break down those 3 fatty acids from that glycerol molecule. We get them out of the fat cell so we can actually start burning them. And bitter orange also has a bit of an appetite suppressant to it. Caffeine, we all know what caffeine does. It stimulates us, stimulates the central nervous system. But it also increases our thermogenesis. That's our body core temperature. If our core temperature is higher, we're going to burn fat at a higher rate. If it's colder, we're going to burn it at a lower rate. So as you're looking at fat oxidation, that is a situation where you're actually oxidizing fat. And in real life, if you were to see examples of it just on the shelf, it's what you call rancid fat that becomes rancid. That is the oxidation result of the. So we're decreasing that. That stimulates our body to burn that fat. Calcium, again, a lipolysis and fat accumulation, and minimizes or shuts down, inhibits the ability of our body to absorb fat. Let's see what I've got here now. Capsaicin is one of those, if you think about any kind of really spicy spice, I'm trying to think of one, habanero, cayenne. Capsaicin is that really hot molecule in there. It heats up the body. Sometimes you see people sweat a little bit when they're eating hot peppers. It increases our basal metabolic rate, lipid oxidation, and makes us feel fuller than we are. Carnitine, again, increases fatty acid oxidation. Chitosan is a kind of a starch blocker of sorts. I took it once when I was on Atkins. Really didn't notice a whole lot for me, but again, it's something that if you're trying to increase the fatty acid oxidation, it's a good thing to have. Chromium increases your lean muscle mass. It's chromium. If you don't want to be deficient in anything, chromium is when you want to be really, because people who are diabetic can really benefit from having the adequate levels of chromium. Reduces hunger, cravings, all sorts of things. Coleus forskolin, again, lipolysis, appetite. Apoptosis, another long word that just means cell death. So if you are trying to cause like a cancer cell, apoptosis is good. It causes a cancer cell to implode on itself and explode, die. We want the same thing to happen there inside our fat tissues. So that particular one is a very good one. Down here. Okay. CLA, conjugated linoleic acid, again, increases lipolysis, reduces lipogenesis. That is the fat storage, promotes apoptosis. We just talked about that. That's cells that are no longer needed killing themselves. Fucoxanthin increases your basal metabolic rate, fatty acid, etc. It suppresses also the fat storage. It's a really, really good molecule to have. Garcinia cambogia, I use that quite a bit. It's part of one of the things I believe in. Uh, and right there in the slide, it says inhibits lipogenesis and suppresses hunger. Glucomannan is one that I've used to. It's kind of like a starch blocker. When you have any kind of a starch blocker, you have a carbohydrate that's going through your digestive intestines. It's actually going to go in and glom on to that carb and not allow it to be digested. And so it's called a starch blocker. There's a lot of different kinds out there. Glucomannan is one of many. But when you have that, it makes you feel fuller, and it takes longer for stuff to go through the system, but you're not actually extracting anything, the blood sugars from that carbohydrate. Green coffee bean extract, again, it inhibits fat accumulation, modulates your blood sugar metabolism. Trying to figure out where my, okay. Green tea, something that I have 6 different teas I drink every day. Green tea is one of them. It has so many benefits for brain health and just other parts of the body, but it increases your basal metabolic rate, also increases your fat oxidation, reduces your lipogenesis and fat absorption. Guar gum, like a starch blocker, it kind of a bulking agent. It makes you feel like you're fuller than you are, and as such, it slows down your gastric time. Hoodia, would not believe how many good things Hoodia does, but it says it suppresses your appetite and hunger, but it's working in many, many different ways in the body. Just really good thing to consider if you're trying to lose weight. Probiotics, you want to have your gut, your microbiota, your gut biome as balanced as possible. If you got too many bad things in there, bad flora and fauna, it's going to affect you. You're not going to get as good nutrient absorption as you need. You're not going to get the energy you need. So probiotics are really good. Prebiotics also are exceptionally well to take. Anytime you're on an antibiotic regimen, talk to your doctor about when you can take probiotics, because if you're taking antibiotics every 12 hours, you really need to know when you should take probiotics. And anyway, a lot of things with regard to that. Pyruvate, again, this operates down at the mitochondrial level in the cell for fat lipolysis. It increases your basal metabolic rate. Raspberry ketones also alter your lipid metabolic metabolism. White kidney bean is another starch blocker, exceptionally so. A lot of these things are very, very natural things that are out there. Let's just go ahead. We got a couple minutes left here to show diets to reduce insulin resistance. Anything that's low carb, Mediterranean generally will work well. But we really want to change our lifestyle, not just our diet, to reduce both insulin and leptin resistance. And this involves the quality of sleep we get every night, the level of exercise, that's the intensity, the frequency, and the type of exercise. Because if all you're doing is going out and running, well, you're missing out on other things that really need to be part of your exercise regimen. And obviously, balanced nutrition. To lose weight, you should be looking at something that's low carb, no carb. But in reality, if you're taking your green fruits and veggies and your colored fruits and vegetables from the Wahls Protocol, you're looking at something well below 10 carbs a day and the protein that you need there. I will give you a warning. If all you're doing is going with high fat on a keto diet, high protein, no carbs, you will have a pH problem. You will develop acidosis. You will open the door down the road for bone density. I've talked about my situation that I had. I was on Atkins for 6 years. I was in severe acidosis. I didn't realize it until I got a bone density test. I found I was osteopenia after decades of lifting weights and running 5-8 miles a day in some cases for long periods of time. I thought I had the strongest bones in the world. I didn't. All because of acidosis, all because I was not eating enough fruits and vegetables that leave the body alkaline. Your carbohydrates, your fats, your proteins, just your general metabolism all leave the body in an acidic environment. You need the body at least at a 7.35 to 7.45 pH so that the blood doesn't leach calcium from the bones to keep the pH stabilized. I strongly recommend, if you're going to look at an Atkins type of diet, be very, very familiar with the Wahls Protocol so you know what is really needed. What are the best diets of this year? Well, they say the Mediterranean, the DASH diet, Weight Watchers, vegan, flexitarian, intermittent fasting, volumetrics, plant-based. There's a new Mayo Clinic diet, Noom, pescatarian, paleo, keto, cert food mayor. They all have their individual things, and they may work well with any individual. A vegan diet for somebody is not going to work on another. A keto diet for someone will probably work because of what it is, but they have problems with them. And anytime that you're shutting down carbs and you're not getting carbs from fruits and vegetables, now you're addressing the pH issues of the body, and that can become a major problem. If 80% of the stuff that you're bringing in is fat and protein, you really need, there has to be some carbohydrates, but it doesn't have to be carbohydrates from sugar and rice and potatoes and things like that. Exercises to lose weight. The higher, more intense exercise is going to burn fat more. But exercise in and of itself is only going to lose about 10, maybe 15% at most. And as we get older, we have a tendency, I go out there and I want to just do a lot of stuff. The recovery is probably more important than the actual exercise. Dr. Berg, B-E-R-G, has a lot of different YouTube videos on various things to lose weight here, there, yonder. I strongly, strongly recommend, if you want to take up an exercise regimen, you want to understand how exercise affects weight loss, he has probably some of the best videos I've seen out there. A lot of them are just 5 to 8 minutes. He has some longer ones. But if you're going to be doing any kind of exercise, you want to have strength training because you want to have that overall balance. You want to have your core right. You want to have your cardiovascular. You want your heart exercises. HIIT is high intensity interval training. That's where you're sprinting. Jogging is nice. Walking is probably one of the best exercises to do, but you need to walk for about 25 to 40 minutes in order to actually start burning fat. You got to burn up that existing blood sugar that's in you. So if you're going out for a walk and it's 30 minutes, you may not be getting any actual fat burning, but you're getting a lot of good fresh air, sunshine, there's a lot of good for it. But if you want to lose some weight, you need to start increasing that walking length to being more than 40 minutes. Swimming, a great exercise. Intermittent fasting should have been IF, not IT. Yoga, Pilates. But the core is important. Our balance is super important. Flexibility, strength, endurance, all those things are great. And if you're relying on exercise to lose weight, don't rely on more than 10% of whatever you want to lose to be accountable by exercise, because it's not going to happen. What you put in your mouth is going to be a much bigger effect on what's going to happen down the road. And if you have a balanced nutrition all the way through, if your stress is managed, a lot of things are just going to become natural because you're not offsetting them with those things that's going to shut fat out of a fat cell and not allow it to be burned, or shut down your basal metabolic rate so you're not burning as fast as you can. Just a lot of things interweave, and I'm hoping that these lectures on fat management gives you that insight as to what's causing everything. Now, next week, I haven't quite decided whether I'm going to talk about toxins or maybe the immune system. I got to give it some thought because it's a 6-week program, and I really need to put something together. But this last 6 weeks on fat management, I think is pretty well done. If you need to reach me, I'm at red.olaughlin.com. That's REDOLAUGHLIN.com. And I can be reached at red.olaughlin.com. I have a couple books primarily on health for aging, longevity, secrets for healthy aging, the joy of ageless health. I had a book on results matter when you want to lose weight and keep it off. I pulled it off I kept the ebooks on Barnes & Noble and Amazon, but I'm revising that, and that hopefully will be out by the end of September as another one of my books. So you might keep an eye out for that. And I believe that's the end of today. So we're here at the end of Talking Heads from the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And again, this is all awareness, a little bit of education, but before you take action, please talk to your primary care doctor, or if it's just a matter, will this interfere with my medicine? Talk to your pharmacist. Again, Red O'Laughlin, have a nice one. See you next week.